So, have you ever felt like you are just floating through life? Like, technically, you're here, but you're not really here. Like, you show up for life, you do the things, but on the inside, it's like you're watching your life from a distance and you're not freaking out, you're not spiraling, you're not even necessarily feeling bad. It doesn't look like you're struggling. You just feel nothing. Like you are detached from everything, including yourself. So, this, folks, this is a face of functional freeze, a face that I have deemed the detached and disconnected floater. And if this sounds familiar, I want you to know you're not broken and there's a reason for it. So, I'm Andrea Ashley, and I'm the host of the podcast Adult Child. And this is the third and final video in my series, The Many Faces of Functional Freeze. So, in the first two videos, we explored number one, the stuck and shame filled overthinker, my version of functional freeze, a version of freeze that looks like procrastination and spiraling self sabotage. We then looked at the over functioning fixer, the flavor of freeze that looks like doing everything for everyone while quietly falling apart on the inside. And today, we are wrapping this up with the quietest, most invisible version of them all, the detached and disconnected floater. So let's get into this. All right, so let's break down what the disconnected floater really looks like. So this isn't the freeze that spirals into shame like the overthinker or masks itself in overachieving and overdoing like the fixer. No, this is the flavor of freeze where you feel like you are barely here. You are going through the motions of life, but you're not really living your life. Things feel foggy, hazy, like there's a film between you and the rest of the world. And it's not like you're drowning in tasks that you can't do. It's that you don't even care about doing them. You feel so disconnected from any real sense of motivation or desires and relationships. You want them, you want to connect, but there is just this emotional flatness. You feel unavailable to other people and to yourself. You drift into endless scrolling, daydreaming, zoning out, not because you are avoiding something specific, but because being present feels uncomfortable and maybe even pointless. And inside, it's quiet, but not in a peaceful way, in an empty way. There's not necessarily a loud inner critic here. There's just this low grade sense of blah, just numbness. And the thoughts that swirl around in your head are like, my feelings don't matter. Nothing I will do will make a difference. It's not safe to feel. Why bother? It won't change anything. It's easier to be invisible. And you might even wonder why you're not more motivated, you're not more connected, you're not more alive. But this isn't about laziness or lack of effort. This is your nervous system in survival mode, keeping you at a safe distance from a world that once felt too painful to fully engage with. And so this isn't just a phase or a personality trait. This is functional freeze that is just wearing a mask of disengagement instead of collapse or overfunctioning. So let's talk about where this flavor of functional freeze comes from. So like the other faces we've talked about, this doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It is wired into your nervous system, often way back into childhood. So maybe you grew up in a home where emotions were ignored or minimized. So your caregivers met your physical needs, but treated your feelings as irrelevant or even maybe as too much. Maybe when you reached out for comfort, you were told to stop being so dramatic. And so you learned that staying quiet kept the peace, kept you safe. Sometimes the disconnected floater could come from an emotional environment that was unpredictable. So maybe your parents were warm one moment and distant or overwhelmed the next. You never knew what version of them you were going to get. For some, there may have been enmeshment. So maybe you became the emotional support for your caregiver who leaned on you too much, who confided in you like a peer, who treated you like their therapist, who made you feel responsible for their well-being long before you were ready. And that sort of emotional burden leads to burnout, especially to emotional shutdown. Or maybe you grew up in a home where there was a lot of conflict, a lot of tension, or perhaps your caregivers were physically there but emotionally absent. So, whether that's from addiction or mental health struggles, workaholism, their own unresolved trauma, they couldn't truly connect with you. And as a result of that, you stop trying to connect with yourself. And so, again, the detachment that you feel today is a pattern your body learned long ago to protect you. But here's the thing, and this is the uncomfortable part of the conversation, and that is that living like this comes with a cost, quite a cost. Inside, you feel completely alone. So even when you're in a room full of people, even with friends or family around, it's like there's this invisible wall between you and everyone else. Like you're in your own room. You're not really in it. And over time, that disconnection really starts to wear on you. You lose touch with what you actually want, what you actually feel, what you actually care about, goals, dreams, relationships. They feel distant, they feel foggy. Maybe you can name them, but you don't feel connected to them. Like there is just this low grade numbness that exists in all aspects of your life. You are watching life happen, but you're not driving the car. And beneath that numbness is this quiet, unexplainable sadness. Like you're grieving something that you can't quite put words to. Maybe it's the life that you could have lived if you had been able to stay connected to yourself. Maybe it is the version of you that never fully got to show up. So this disconnection doesn't just affect how you feel inside, it touches every aspect of your life. Relationships stay surface level, or maybe they just fizzle out altogether because it feels too hard to let people in all the way. Advocating for yourself becomes nearly impossible when you don't even know what you need. You stay in jobs that drain you or relationships that don't nourish you because making a change feels too overwhelming. And then the worst part about it all is that you blame yourself for it. You might call yourself lazy, unmotivated, inherently flawed, broken. But again, none of that is true. So, how do we begin to come back to ourselves? How do you reconnect when you've been floating for so long? So, here's what I want you to know. This isn't something that you can think your way out of. You can't logic or mindset hack your way back into feeling because this isn't a thinking problem. This is a nervous system pattern. And that's why healing has to happen in the body. So, somatic work, now that could be breath work, grounding exercises, gentle movement, therapy modalities that help connect you with your body, somatic experiencing. That is what's going to help bring you back to here, back to the present moment, one tiny step at a time. It is going to teach your system that it's safe to feel again, that it's safe to be here again. And please know that that doesn't mean that you're just going to be feeling everything all at once. That would be way too much for a nervous system that learned to disconnect for survival. It means slowly, gently thawing, feeling a little more, coming back to your body bit by bit. And that's how you start to shift out of this functional freeze, not by forcing yourself to care, not by willing yourself into motivation, but by creating safety inside your own system so that you can stay present with yourself instead of constantly floating away. And so, if any of this feels familiar, if you recognize yourself in the disconnected floater, again, I just want to remind you, you're not broken, you're not beyond repair. You're a human whose nervous system learned that feeling, connecting, and being here wasn't safe. And now your system is still running that old survival playbook, but it doesn't have to stay that way. You can come back to yourself slowly and gently with the right tools and support. And so if you found this video helpful, please hit that subscribe button, give it a like, share it with a pal, somebody who might need this. As I said before, there are so many people that are in functional freeze that have no idea that they are. So let's please help get this message out to the people who have been struggling with freeze that don't even know it, because they deserve that they're not alone. and they deserve to heal. So thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time.